Hi, good morning, Chair.
Morning, Andre. Are we ready to start?
We can start, Chair. I'll do a roll call now, Chair.
Please do.
Dr. Kigaba,
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I'm here.
Mr. Koza,
Morning, Chair. Morning, Andre. I'm available.
Ms. Schlauser Webster,
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Chair.
Ms. Motsikatsi,
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Mr. Chance,
Good morning, everybody.
Mr. Gama,
Good morning, everybody present.
Mr. Three,
Good morning, Chair. Morning, colleagues.
Mr. Mdluli.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues.
Those are members currently on the platform, Chair. We have one apology, Mr. Langa. The others may still join us, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Margo can fly the agenda, Chair.
Yes, Margo, if you can just fly the agenda.
Recording in progress.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we've got an agenda before us. There are two items. There are three items, actually. Consideration of the draft report, second and third quarter financial and non-financial, as well as a report on the NAFCOC petition. So those are two reports. The other two is the program for the next quarter, as well as the study tour update. Can I get a mover and seconder for the agenda?
Good morning, Chair. I move for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Member Musikasi. The seconder?
Second, Chair.
Seconded, Honorable Koza, much appreciated. Thank you very much, colleagues. The agenda having been adopted, can we move for apology?
Chair, we have an apology from Mr. Langa and Mr. Nshinkila. And the other member may still join us during the course of the meeting, Chair. Those are the two. We have a full house technically, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure who's leading the delegation from the department. I did not check who's present here.
We have the CFO of the department on the platform, the most senior person, Chair.
Okay, so the minister and the team are not in?
No, because we are dealing with our committee reports, Chair, so there's no requirement for them to be on the platform, Chair.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can we, who's going to present the report then?
The secretary will take the members through the report. We'll deal with the second quarter and third quarter financial report, Chair. As we communicated, we have asked members to submit concluding remarks, and parties have submitted those, Chair, so we will also include that. So through you, Chair, if I may take the members through the second and first quarter report, Chair?
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay, thanks. I'm just waiting for it to be flighted, Chair. No, Sekwanda, the full report, Sekwanda, not that, yeah. Chair, we're looking at the committee's report on the department's second and third quarter financial and non-financial performance, Chair. The committee met in March on the matter. The first part is just the introduction, highlighting the mandate of the committee, the purpose of the report in line with the PFMA requirements that we need to report on this matter as part of Parliament's strategic obligations. Go down, Sekwanda. Bullet 2 just highlights the strategic goals of the DTIC, which we have captured below there, Chair. We go down, Sekwanda. members are familiar with the principles and the mandate of the DTIC as gone through. Then we provide an overview of the assessment of financial and non-financial performance. Non-financial performance are captured in 2.1, highlighting the different programs. Go down to Sequenda. Program 1 dealing with administration is captured there. Program 2 dealing with trade is also captured within the report. Program 3 dealing with investment in spatial industrial development. Program 4 dealing with sectors. Program 5 dealing with regulation. Program 6 with incentives, which is captured there. Program 7 exports. Program 8 transformation and competition. Program 9 dealing with research. Then financial performance of the department for the second quarter performance is captured in 2.2.1. Then the third quarter performance is captured in 2222 point. Then we're dealing with the issues raised to the deliberations. I'll take members through that, Chair. Point 1, according to the Director General, the DTIC has achieved only 18 of its 34 planned targets in the third quarter, which raised concerns about the level of its underperformance. Therefore, the committee requested that the DTIC should provide a comprehensive list of targets that have not been achieved and the reason for this. It further requested that the DTIC should outline the factors that have contributed to these outcomes and to clarify the impact of the underperformance on its overall performance, particularly in relation to the achievement of broad objectives of industrialization, investment promotion, and economic growth. The DTIC acknowledged the underperformance and indicated that the year-to-date performance report has been sourced in which all targets achieved and not achieved have been identified. The DG stated that 21 targets have not been met, while which are outlined in subsection 2.21 above. Further highlighted key contributing factors, including timing issues, procurement delays, organizational culture challenges, and external factors such as countries' compliance with trade protocol. DTIC further informed the committee that the African Continental Free Trade Area related trade targets were particularly affected by, if you go down now, Shobanda, by the impact of the ongoing tariff wars. One of the DTIC's underachieved targets reported was that all entities should achieve 80% or more of their planned targets per quarter. During the second quarter, 13 of 19 entities achieved at least 80% of their planned targets. In the third quarter, 12 of the 19 had achieved at least 80% of their planned targets. The committee inquired what steps DTIC was taken to improve the non-financial performance of entities. To mitigate the impact of underperformance in relation to entities' performance levels, DTIC was actively engaging its entities and conducting monthly and quarterly reviews to improve achieving the targeted 80% of achievement rate and to support the achievement of just give me a second, of economic objectives. Quarterly targets in several critical areas, including trade, export, investment, attraction, disbursement for the transformation fund, job creation, youth trained in digital skills and employment, unemployment training, digital literacy, and industrial park development were either not set or achieved. The committee inquired what corrective measures have been put in place to address these gaps and what impact these shortfalls may have on achieving meaningful economic growth and employment opportunities for South Africa, given the current economic climate. The DTI informed the committee that corrective measures had been implemented to address performance challenges, including targeted interventions, strengthening performance monitoring, and sector-specific support. The impact of these challenges was being mitigated through focused engagement with the SMEs, the provision of incentives, and implementation of industrial expansion projects aimed at sustaining economic growth and job creation. The following mitigation measures were implemented. For the investment and spatial industrial development program in Q4, a more focused investment mobilization drive targeting key countries was being undertaken, and an increase in investment attraction was expected. With regard to the export program, the recruitment of participants in export programs and activities would continue, also targeting Black-owned companies to deliver increased exports. With regard to the transformation and competition program, in terms of a transformation fund, the DTIC was in the process of finalizing partnership agreements with stakeholders for the transformation fund aggregation, including the disbursement for aggregated funds. With respect to the trade program, publication of the patents bill and design amendment bill, new treaties has been adopted in the WIPO that require the review of the draft bills to ensure alignment where necessary. Further amendments were therefore being incorporated. The DTIC has requested WIPO to provide assistance in the review of draft bills and to advise on possible updates to the bills to align these with the latest treaties adopted in WIPO. With respect to the SADC EU EPA additional GIs, the internal process in the EU were ongoing to add Karoo lamb GI to the list of South African GI protected under the EPA. With regard to increased tariff rate quotes, the TRQ reviews were considered under the EPA review, which has stalled since 2024 due to disagreements on the review approach. The review will be discussed in the next SADC EU Trade and Development Committee meeting, for which a date was still to be confirmed. Regarding SACCM UK EPA additional GIs, parties were yet to convene a meeting to advance discussion on GI protocol, including the amendments of the protected list. In all cases, while it should be noted South African exporters were successfully leveraging both EPAs with the EU and UK, further market access could contribute to exports. At the end of December 25, the DTIC had 28.8% and 25.3% under expenditure when compared to its projected expenditure in Program 3 Investment and Special Industrial Development and Program 6 Incentives, respectively. The committee inquired about the specific operational and administrative challenges that led to this underspending and how this affected the implementation of key industrial development initiatives, SEZs, and incentive support programs. It further requested that the DTIC should provide an assessment of economic impact of the underspending, particularly in relation to investment attraction, industrial expansion, and job creation. The committee was informed that under expenditure was largely concentrated in these two programs, primarily due to one, key vacancies that were at various stages of recruitment, documentation needed to complete incentive claims, which claimants had not yet provided. 3, some incentive programs had received fewer claims than expected. 4, the lengthy process of vetting the agreements. And 5, delays in receiving signed copies from the SEZs. Other SEZs that were ready for disbursement were currently not tax non-compliant with respect to registration, filing, and or payment obligations, and were in the process of resolving these technical issues. In line with incentives architecture and actual disbursement were contingent upon approved entities meeting specific performance outputs such as investments, job creation, and location targets. These projects typically span multiple years and were influenced by various external factors, including market conditions, natural disasters, labor disruptive, and supply chain challenges. Consequently, the timing of and volume of claims remain variable and difficult to predict. Underspending in Program 3, the Investment, Spatial and Industrial Development Program, was mainly due to pending compliance documentation that was required to make payment to the IDC, Regional Industrial Development, but they had not been completed by the end of the quarter. The IDC further noted that slower disbursement had affected investment traction and job creation, although ongoing commitments such as Nyangaza light metals plant were expected to generate significant economic and employment outcomes. In addition, the underspending in the program was attributable to delays in the rollout of the provincial one-stop shops. These delays arose primarily from inadequate governance frameworks and limited operational capacity at the provincial level, which affected the timely establishment and implementation of the required institutional arrangements. As a result, certain planned activities and associated expenditures could not be executed within the reporting period. Given that the DTIC only achieved 70% of its second quarter targets and 40% of its third quarter targets, there was a risk of fiscal dumping where the budget was spent but planned targets were not achieved. The committee inquired how DTIC planned to prevent fiscal dumping, which could result in fruitless, wasteful, or irregular expenditure. It further inquired what measures were implemented to ensure that expenditure remained both effective and economical, and how the DTIC would report and account for any irregular expenditure or instances where fiscal dumping was detected. The DTIC informed the committee that at the end of the third quarter, it had projects in pipeline that were being finalized and will be funded accordingly. Several approved projects were fully funded but remain unpaid because of requisite vetting, compliance, and documentation checks had been outstanding. These payments will only be released once standard pre-disbursement checks were completed in line with the incentive architecture. For example, the verification of investment, job creation, location inputs, tax and compliance clearance, and signed agreements were in place and verified. There were also projects and programs that met all compliance and verification requirements and were ready for payment, but current vote balances did not have the required funds available. Where payments were justified and compliant, the DTIC would submit formal environment requests to reallocate funds from slow spending programs budget lines to these disbursement-ready projects following PFMA and National Treasury procedures. Furthermore, the DTIC affirmed that this budget will only be spent where outputs were verified and compliance had been confirmed. The funding constraints existed to fully compliant projects. Environments will be pursued transparently and in line with statutory requirements to ensure timely, effective, and economical use of available resources. Any unspent funds would be surrendered in line with requirements, and any rollovers for delayed project would be implemented in line with prescripts. With regards to delays in the processing of payment of incentives to industry stakeholders, the committee inquired what measures the DTIC had implemented to address the delays and what the primary reason for these delays were. Furthermore, it inquired about the specific incentive schemes or programs that were mostly affected by the delays and what steps were taken to improve administrative efficiency and turnaround times in the processing of incentive claims. In addition, it requested clarification on what non-financial support mechanisms the DTIC had provided to ensure that the projects and operations were not disrupted. The DTIC informed committee that delays in incentive payments were primarily due to administrative bottlenecks. It further highlighted the non-financial support mechanisms provided to companies, including market access, capability building initiatives, and telemetry monitoring for SMEs to ensure continuity of projects and operations. It indicated that it remains committed to ensure that incentives programs are administered efficiently and that beneficiaries receive support within reasonable timeframes. In general, payment delays that occur are predominantly associated with non-compliance to guidelines requirements, submission of incomplete claims, and supporting information. The delays experienced in the processing payments of full incentives claims stem from budgetary constraints, high volumes of claims received with limited human capacity to process them, and submission of incomplete or non-compliant documentation. To address these challenges, the DTIC has had enhanced communication with claimants, and operational procedures were continuously being reviewed to streamline administrative processes to reduce turnaround times. Checklists have been issued to assist claimants on the documents to be submitted. The issues of vacant positions with the DTIC has been a long-standing matter of the committee's oversight focus. The DTIC's proofs indicated that 182 vacant positions would be filled. Therefore, the committee inquired whether it could provide a detailed progress report on this commitment, including how many of the 182 posts had been filled and how many still remain in the recruitment process. The committee also requested information on the expected timelines for completion of the recruitment process and the extent to which vacancies had affected the DTIC's ability to process incentives and implement key programs. The DTIC informed the committee that 182 vacant posts had been prioritized and were funded posts. These have been planned to be filled in the process of 5 recruitment batches and was subject to the Department of Public Service and Administration's process, job evaluations, and approval. To date, 3 batches of 76 posts has been prioritized for filling, of which 68 posts have been advertised. The shortlisting for 59 posts has been completed. Interview for 46 posts have been concluded, and 30 appointments have been made in terms of the 4th batch has been made. In terms of the 4th batch, approval has been granted on 29th of December 2025 for 48 permanent posts and 12 contract posts to be filled. In terms of the 5th batch, 57 priority posts will be filled. However, job evaluation and the recruitment process had to be initiated. It further noted that recruitment was ongoing and that the cultural survey and organizational realignment was being prioritized before full restructuring. The DTIC acknowledged that these vacancies had impacted on the processing of incentives and program delivery, although appointments, including DDGs, were being expedited to mitigate the effects. In its presentation, the DDIC informed the committee that the post of Chief Operating Officer was not supported by the DPSA, despite being identified as critical. The committee had inquired whether the DTIC could provide reasons for the DPSA decision not to support this post and how this affected the DTIC's capacity to improve its performance. The DTIC informed the committee that the DPSA had initially approved the advertisement of 3 Deputy Director General positions. However, the DPSA had subsequently raised concerns regarding job evaluation and structural compliance, which resulted in delays. The DTIC indicated that the minister had since approved the job evaluation, allowing the recruitment process to proceed under the minister's oversight, under ministerial oversight. With regard to the G20 trade and investment outcomes, the DTIC informed the committee that all of its 4 priorities had been met, including the WTO reform. The committee requested the DTIC to clarify what specific WTO reforms outcomes had been achieved under South African G20 presidency. In particular, the 3 specific reform proposals submitted by South Africa to the WTO, and to explain the expected impact of each proposal. The DTIC informed the committee that all G20 priorities has been met under South Africa's chairpersonship. In relation to WTO reform outcomes, it indicated that the member states have recommitted to multilateral trade rules and WTO reform, including the development dimension. In addition, members committed to constructive engagement at the WTO on agriculture and other issues of interest to members that have stalled since the establishment of the WTO. These outcomes were achieved with all members of the G20 being part, which sends a good signal forward. MC14 to be held in Cameroon from 26 to 29 March 2026. The outcome has informed future declarations, including the WTO, towards MC14 expected to sustain multilateral trade engagement. The 3 proposals were on the policy space to advance industrialization, relating to technology transfer, subsidies, local content requirements, and agriculture. Beneficiation, particularly regarding critical minerals, is still of critical importance for the industrialization and localization. Given the continued export of raw materials and import of finished products, the committee inquired whether the DTIC had been considering the creation of a beneficiation index, and if so, what indicators would be included to measure progress, and how frequently progress will be reported to the committee to ensure accountability on beneficiation outcomes. In addition, it inquired what plans or intervention the DTIC had to leverage South Africa's competitive and comparative advantages in critical minerals to increase local value addition and job creation. The DTIC informed the committee that it was considering beneficiation measures aimed at promoting local value addition and job creation, subject to the outcome of feasibility assessment in relation to such an index. These plans include leveraging South Africa's competitive advantages in critical minerals, facilitating downstream manufacturing activities such as electric vehicle batteries and catalytic converters, and monitoring progress through sector-specific indicators. In addition, the Minerals Beneficiation Center will be established at TIPS to 1, conduct a policy and legislative review of the mineral sector. 2, determine minerals or sectors to be prioritized for beneficiation. 3, propose policy instruments to drive beneficiation. 4, track investment projects, and 5, ensure institutional alignment for mineral beneficiation. Both the GTIC and the Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources will be the drivers of the project, to be supported by the GTIC, the DMPR, MINTEC, the Council of Geoscience, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the IDC, and the ITEC. In October 2025, the African Development Bank had approved financing of $75 million for Nyanza Light Metals to support the development, construction, and operation of an 80,000 tons per annum titanium dioxide pigment manufacturing plant in the Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone. The committee inquired how the data plan to replicate this model for other raw materials to drive value addition and beneficiation across South Africa, and could it elaborate on the expected economic and employment impact of this investment, and what measures are in place to ensure it contributes to broader industrialization, local value addition, and beneficiation objectives. The GTIC informed the committee that the $75 million facilities has been secured to support beneficiation initiatives, with the model intended to be replicated by targeting additional raw materials for local value addition. It indicated that the initiative was expected to support local industrialization, job creation, and increased beneficiation. The domestic sugar industry has been struggling, particularly regarding the impact of the potential liquidation of Tongaat Hulett and the consequential risk of job losses across the sugar value chain. The committee inquired whether the DTIC had many plans in place to mitigate these risks, and what intervention or support measures were being considered to stabilize the industry and preserve jobs. The DTIC explained that Tongaat Hulett, a major agro-processing and sugar manufacturing company operating in South Africa and across the SADC region, had been under business rescue proceedings in terms of the Companies Act. Business rescue practitioners were appointed to stabilize the company's financial position, restructuring its debt, and develop a sustainable turnaround strategy. Despite ongoing business rescue efforts and continued engagement with key stakeholders, including government, the BRP subsequently filed an application for provisional liquidation. It informed the committee that together with the IDC and key stakeholders in the sugar industry, it was actively opposing the liquidation and were exploring alternative strategies to stabilize company, protecting employment and ensuring continuity with the sugar sector. Key measures under consideration included implementing the business rescue plan and engaging potential strategic equity partners to provide financial and operational support, thereby enhancing the company's long-term viability and mitigating potential socioeconomic impacts. The DTIC provided a spatial distribution of incentives disbursement by district municipalities. Based on the data presented, it appeared that the Northern Cape has received no disbursements from April to December 2025, cited being one of the poorest provinces with the largest geographical area, highest level of poverty, and significant mineral wealth. The committee inquired what mechanism or criteria determined the spatial allocation of disbursement across provinces and the rationale behind the Northern Cape received exclusion. Furthermore, what steps or measures were the DTIC considering to improve awareness, education, and support for provinces and beneficiaries to ensure equitable access to funding? In addition, how the DTIC plan to address the current imbalance and ensure more equitable spatial distribution of a disbursement across all provinces, particularly those both high poverty and high economic potential. The low level of disbursement in Northern Cape was largely due to limited pipeline of the mature project in the province. To improve awareness and promote more equitable access to funding, the DTIC reported that it had implemented provincial outreach, education, and capacity building initiatives. Data indicated that recently net job creation was concentrated in the Western Cape. The committee inquired whether the DTIC had assessed the factors that contributing to this performance and how these factors could inform efforts to improve investment attraction and job creation, and whether these lessons could be replicated in other provinces. The DTIC informed the committee that they had not assessed the factors contributing to the Western Cape success in net job creation. However, it planned to engage with provincial department agencies to share best practices and explore how these lessons could be applied in other provinces. The DTIC had identified a number of strategic as well as priority foreign officials to be capacitated, with 12 foreign economic office posts advertised and appointments expected shortly. However, the committee had previously been informed that close to 40 posts were required to be filled. The committee therefore inquired about the status of the remaining posts, when these appointments were expected to be finalized, and whether delays were primarily due to budgetary constraints or other institutional challenges. The DTIC informed the committee that 12 posts has been advertised for deployment in priority foreign markets. It indicated that delays in financing points in addition to the 12 posts has been the result of budgetary constraint. It further noted that additional appointments will be approved once the necessary additional budget has been secured. In the third quarter, the DTIC has only achieved 43% of its targets. Given that the IDC, one of the primary development financial institutions, the committee inquired what interventions had been implemented to address this underperformance and to ensure that the IDC effectively drove investment into key growth sectors. The IDC responded that it implemented targeted management interventions to strengthen the investment pipeline, accelerate disbursement, and improve internal execution and turnaround times. These included prioritizing transactions with advanced readiness, intensifying post-approval support to unblock delayed disbursement, and implementing internal process improvements to address approval and execution delays. While certain impacts such as on jobs experts were not expected to be realized within the fourth quarter, the underlying interventions remain in place and will continue beyond the current financial year to support improved performance over time. Regarding the proposed local battery manufacturing initiative, the committee inquired whether this initiative was driven by localization objectives or whether it was also designed to ensure global competitiveness. The committee further inquired whether the DTIC had put measures in place to ensure that locally manufactured batteries could compete globally, or rather than relying on protection through import duties. The DTIC indicated that it was seeking to establish EV battery manufacturing capacity premised on localization and part of the greening of industrialization in South Africa rather than import substitution. The intention is to integrate EV battery manufacturing into a global automotive supply chain. This model is similar to the manufacturing of catalytic converters, which South Africa led due to its platinum reserve. This is being supported by the EU through the Clean Trade and Investment Partnership. During the committee's oversight to the SEZs in KwaZulu-Natal, investors raised concerns about the lack of tax breaks available at newer SEZs and expiry of tax breaks in 2030, which could be an integral part of the SEZs based on the SEZ Act. The committee inquired whether the DTIC could provide the committee with an update on the progress made in resolving these concerns for National Treasury. The committee further inquired about the recent litigation impacting on the development of the Musina Mercado SEZ and what steps the DTIC was taking in this regard. Furthermore, it inquired whether there were ongoing negotiations with the ministers responsible for forestry, fisheries and environment, and for minerals and petroleum resources regarding the environmental regulatory issues that affect the SEZ. In addition, the committee sought clarity whether the DTIC, in consultation with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment and the Limpopo Department of Economic Development, Environment and Tourism, has reassessed the viability of this SEZ, which is a heavy industrialized metallurgical complex in an environmentally sensitive area in rural Limpopo, in light of the current industrial strategy focus on decarbonization, diversification, and digitization. The DTIC informed the committee that it was actively engaging with National Treasury and relevant senior ministers to address tax and regulatory concerns affecting SEZs. In addition, the viability of SEZs was being reassessed within the context of evolving industrial policy priorities, including decarbonization, economic diversification, and digitization of industry. With regard to the Automotive Production and Development Program and the Mahindra investment, the committee inquired whether the investment was based on semi-knockdown or completely knockdown assembly operation. Furthermore, given the industry concern that semi-knockdown investments generate limited employment, it inquired what steps have been considered to encourage manufacturers to commit to a fully CKD assembly plants. In addition, the DTIC referenced 250 billion in investment commitments in the sector. The committee inquired about the period of which these investments will be expected to materialize. DTIC informed the committee that the investment included CKD operations, while concerns relating to SKD production were being addressed through incentives aimed at strengthening local assembly and localization. Furthermore, the total investment commitment to amount to approximately 250 billion rand, which will be implemented in phases over the medium-term period as part of the sector's development strategy. The facility is currently operating on an SKD basis, but is in the process of transferring towards full CKD production, with production volumes expected to increase over time. There has been ongoing concerns in the metal recycling sector, especially in relation to the price preference system and the export tax, as recyclers argue that this has led to effective transferring of the income to mini mills. The committee inquired about the current status of the DTIC's discussion with National Treasury on creating a more balanced framework between the recyclers and mills. The DTI informed the committee that it was engaged in ongoing discussion with National Treasury to review the incentive framework applicable to steel recycling and mini mill segment. These engagements were aimed at ensuring a balanced approach to incentives between recyclers and mini mill producers, and that potential adjustments to the framework were being considered to promote fairness and support the sustainability of the sector. With regard to matters in South African Bureau of Standards, the committee has been waiting for the report commissioned by the Minister in 2025 regarding challenges at the SABS. The committee inquired when it would receive the report and what steps has been taken by SABS to address the governance and operational challenges. The DTIC committed that the last 3 reports have been signed by the Minister and are currently pending processing by the SABS board. It indicating that delays were largely attributed to the thoroughness of the service provider responsible for the work. The committee was further informed that the report has been commissioned in 2025 and the SABS has begun implementing corrective measures aimed at strengthening governance and operational performance. However, it did not specify a timeline for submission or finalization of the report. National Treasury has proposed a national tax on gross gambling revenue for all on-gambling activities emanating from South Africa. The committee inquired about the DTIC's position on the proposed national gambling tax, whether it support the tax, and if so, what rate was considered appropriate. The DTIC informed the committee that further consultation with National Treasury was required and that alignment across national and provincial governance structures was necessary. At this stage, the position on the proposed national gambling tax has not been finalized, with discussions still ongoing. Emanating from the committee's engagement with the DTIC and the films and television sector and outstanding incentive payments, DTIC indicated that it was in ongoing engagement with National Treasury to resolve this impasse. Given the high investment multiplier associated with the industry, the committee inquired about the status of the requested engagement with the sector and what steps have been taken to stabilize the sector and prevent further job losses. The DTIC informed the committee that ongoing engagement with the National Treasury continued in order to obtain funding for this industry. It was also engaged in the National Lotteries Commission to assist with additional funding requirements for a sustainable solution. In addition, the DTIC also met with the film industry stakeholders to provide clarity on the status of claims and application to manage equitation regarding the processing thereof. Current discussion will be held with the Industrial Development Corporation to explore other models of funding, and the committee will be informed in due course to co-create a solution that works for all. The rise of artificial intelligence could disrupt the global business sector, potentially replacing human labor. The committee inquired whether DTIC had conducted any assessment of the potential impact of AI on the sector and what strategies were considered for future-proof employment opportunities in this industry. The DTIC indicated that the CBS master plan 2030, compatible with the Memorandum of Agreement between the DTIC, Business Processing Enabling South Africa, and the Harambee Youth Accelerator, we're working towards moving from non-complex to complex and highly complex jobs for the CBS sector. There was also in line with the incentive program, which benefits and encourages companies that create complex to high complex jobs to give them a higher incentive value. In the 2025 financial year, the details included a study benchmarking optimum support levels for global business sectors incentives, which also touched on future risks and opportunities covering AI. This study was being used to review the current CBS incentives, and its outcomes show that if there was adequate skills development, innovation, and digital infrastructure, South Africa could ensure that AI enhances rather than replace CBS jobs. In addition, the BPESA held multiple engagements, including conferences and webinars in AI, including one titled Generative AI, the Game Changer for CBS, and GCC Everest webinar, facilitated by the Everest Group. The Harambee Youth Accelerator was also equipping youth with the necessary skills required to reduce AI risk and convert it into an enabler for better service and future agents. To build a future-ready, globally competitive workforce, the BPESA conducted a study, Africa's Unveiled CBS Skills Strategy 2025-2030. In addition to the study, the BPESA also published a study in March 26, which focused solely on AI, titled AI's Impact on South Africa's Global Business Sector, a comprehensive strategic report for industrial development. One of the key findings of the study was that 170 million new roles could be created by 2030, and 92 million roles would be replaced due to AI globally, implying that there will still be a net opportunity to create 78 million new jobs due to AI. The committee noted that the number of ferrochrome smelters had closed due to rising cost of electricity. The committee inquired by the states.
Can I just raise a question? Sorry, Chair. I just want to ask a question, Andre, if you don't mind. Could you just go back to the previous paragraph? If this study only looks at South Africa's global business services, how is it possible to create 170 million new jobs? Are those jobs globally or are they in South Africa? They can't possibly be. This is globally. Okay.
Globally,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No problem. The committee noted that a number of ferrochrome smelters had closed due to the rising cost of electricity. The committee inquired by the states being pursued by the DTIC, together with Eskom and the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, to support smelters in accessing lower cost electricity, including the wheeling of renewable energy to help prevent further closures. The DTI informed the committee that it was collaborating with Eskom and the NERSA to ensure access to lower cost electricity for ferrochrome smelters. Measures being implemented, including the wheeling of renewable energy and the establishment of tariff agreements with an agreed electricity tariff of 62% per kilowatt hour. It further noted that logistics and infrastructure challenges remain and that ongoing collaboration with other relevant departments was underway to address these issues. The committee expressed concerns regarding the proposed loan from the Afrix Bank to capitalize the transformation fund, particularly given the high impairment rates in development finance. The committee inquired about the status of discussion with National Treasury regarding the approval of the loan, the proposed terms, and the risk mitigation measures associated with this financing arrangement. The DTIC informed committee that loans under the proposed facility with the Afrix Bank would be provided directly to companies through loan financing, thereby imposing no fiscal liability to the state. Risks associated with financing would be mitigated through the transformation fund pillars, which include improved access to financial markets, capacity building, and monitoring mechanisms, including telemetry systems. These safeguards would ensure the effective and accountable use of funds by approved companies and prevent fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Discussions regarding approval of the facilities were reported to be ongoing. Furthermore, it reiterated that the Afrix Bank facility for the Transformation Fund aims to address the structural gaps and to enable Black-owned businesses and entrepreneurs to access finance, hold asset, participate in strategic sectors, and ultimately redistribute economic power across South Africa. The facility would be offered as a direct loan to qualifying majority Black-owned enterprises in line with the criteria and objectives of the Transformation Fund. Application in this regard would be received by the Transformation Fund portal. Those are the concluding remarks, Chair. We also ask parties to submit concluding remarks as per practice, and parties have submitted those. Shall we take members through that, Chair, now?
Yes, you can proceed. Yes.
Chair? These
Yes,
were parties submitting was the ANC, the Democratic Alliance, and the MK Party, and the Secretariat proposed changes will be captured in red. So we will go through each concluding remark, Chair, and then either we proceed or members propose changes as the practice. The first one, the committee highlighted a number of systemic and operational challenges that, if not addressed, might constrain the department's ability to effectively fulfill its developmental objectives. Firstly, the DTIC had achieved 70% of...
Sorry, your line is very bad, Andre. If you can just start from scratch, the first one. Yes.
Okay. Go up, Sekwanda. The first one, Sekwanda.
Number one, please.
Number one, Sekwanda. The committee highlighted a number of systemic and operational challenges that, if not addressed, might constrain the department's ability to effectively fulfill its developmental objectives. Firstly, the DTIC had achieved 70% and 38.2% of its targets, while spending 88.2% and 87.4% of its projected year-to-date expenditure in the second and third quarter of the 2025-26 financial year, respectively. The committee was concerned about the extent of underperformance against these planned targets. Although the DTI attributed this to a combination of internal and external factors, the committee was of the view that these challenges reflect deeper issues related to institutional capacity, coordination, planning, implementation, and performance management.
The percentages there might, just 1 second, the percentages might not be correct. That 70 and 36% is over 100%, so you must guide us.
It refers to the two different quarters, Chair. This one is the second quarter and one is the third quarter.
No problem then.
Okay. Go down. Chair, I think the blue indicated the DA's present input, but it's similar to the first one. So we made the red in the one above was included in there, Mr. Chan. So it's basically the same thing, but we just left it there, but we made the changes in the red, if that's in order with Mr. Chan.
I'm happy with that. Thank you, Andre.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you can delete the blue now.
The new blue is there, Chair. Is this decline in performance was particularly concerning given the DTIC's central role in advancing industrialization, investment in attraction, export growth, and job creation. Underperformance across key programs, including trade, incentives, transformation, and competition, and research suggested that structural inefficiencies and operational constraints continue to limit the DTIC's ability to deliver effectively on its mandate.
How different is it from two, substantively?
We can see if we can combine it two, if that is it, but it's a slightly different, Chair. That's why we left it there. But we can really look at the Chair and see whether we can combine the two, if that's what the committee desires, Chair.
Mr. Chance, what is your thought?
I think they are making similar points. I think that what this paragraph refers to are the programs that
Yes,
are
yeah.
particularly problematic.
We can just add the program to
You
the
could just
to the
add
top one.
that to paragraph 2.
Yeah, yeah,
No problem. Okay, sure. Let's do that.
yeah.
Thank you.
We can delete that. Okay. Then we go to 4. We delete that part, Chair. That will be that because we capture the other because it speaks to the same thing. Is that in order?
Yes.
While there has been areas of progress, including the achievement of certain annual investment and export-related targets, these gains are tempered by broader concerns regarding missed quarterly targets, delayed in implementation, and inconsistencies in performance.
Okay. I think that's fine.
The committee further noted the continued pattern of under-expenditure, which amounted to 723.5 million in the second quarter and 1.9 billion in the third quarter. This underspending, in particular within programs aimed at supporting industrial development and investment, may have constrained the DTIC's ability to stimulate economic activity, crowd in private sector investment, and support job creation.
Are these figures correct, CFO? Stipulated just to be on the safe side for the 2 quarters. CFO?
They are correct, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, so we can live with that.
Then 5, secondly, it expressed concerns around underspending in key programs, namely in the investment in spatial industrial development and incentive programs by the end of December 25, particularly in terms of delays in disbursement of incentives and limited progress in the rollout of industrial parks, highlighting the possible adverse impact of investment flows, industrial expansion, and job creation. The committee implored the DTIC to ensure that underspending was addressed within the guidelines of good governance and financial compliance to prevent the occurrence of irregular or fruitless and wasteful expenditure.
How different is from the one above, from 4? Because it sounds the same, just written differently.
I think, Chair, if I can suggest, just include the 2 programs that have particularly been underspending in paragraph 4.
Okay, yeah, then we delete it. Okay, thank you. Then the next one.
We go down to 6. We'll make the change. You'll note the change 5 and 6, 4 and 5. These delays in spending accompanied by broader administrative bottlenecks remain key areas of concern. These challenges not only delay the implementation of critical economic interventions, but may also weaken business confidence and reduce the effectiveness of policy instruments intended to support growth.
Okay. Is it far distant from the 2 points, 4 and 5? Because it talks to under expenditure, all of them.
Yes, yeah.
Is there anything significant, Mr. Chance, that would make us to sustain this point? Because
I think the point that is being made here is the impact. These challenges delay the implementation of critical economic, but weaken business confidence and reduce the effectiveness of policy instruments intended to support growth. I think that's the main point. So, again, if you want to conjoin that sentence into the previous paragraph, that would also be fine.
Okay, perfect. Let's move to the next one.
Thirdly, it emphasized that these challenges, together with the persistent vacancies, delays in recruitment, inefficiencies in supply chain management, and organizational constraints, indicated that administrative and structural deficiencies continue to undermine program implementation and service delivery. So I think we combined the red, Mr. Shans, whether that captures the issue that you are highlighting at the bottom, Chair, Mr. Chance.
Okay. Then the next one.
Lastly, it noted that the uneven performance across entities, with around 60% of its 19 entities achieving at least 80% of the budgetary plan targets, This suggested weaknesses in the DTIC's monitoring and accountability mechanisms, which required strengthened governance and oversight, as well as greater alignment between the DTIC and its entities by implementing more consistent performance management practices to ensure that the expenditure would be both effective and aligned with measurable outcomes. Furthermore, the committee urged that the DTIC to ensure that any outstanding entity vacancies at board and or senior manager level were finalized.
That's
Andre,
fine.
maybe just remove lastly, because it's not lastly. That would imply
Yes.
it's the last
Yeah,
paragraph.
we'll do that. Yeah, it was in relation to what? Yeah, we'll do that, Chair.
Okay. The next one.
Furthermore, the committee re-emphasized the importance of coordination and cooperation between different spheres of governance and across national departments and public institutions to facilitate, maintain and promote investment, industrial development, trade and job creation. Provincial one-stop shop is one of the tools to facilitate this coordination and cooperation. Therefore, the committee was concerned that there were delays in their rollout due to inadequate governance framework and limited operational capacity at the provincial level. Consequently, it encouraged the DTIC to engage with the relevant national and provincial departments to advocate the benefits of the one-stop shops for provinces.
Is it within our control that point we're making about provinces? How will this change the price of bread, Andre?
I think the idea is that there must be engagement and discussions by between the national DTIC and the provincial authorities regarding this matter, Chair. So it will be that discussion that will maybe hopefully lead to the rollout of one-stop shops. But obviously, given the relationship between province and national, it will be dependent whether the province is the ultimate arbiter with how quick they will roll out that, Chair. But the discussion, I think here the issue is about facilitating the discussions and the promotion thereof, Chair, if I'm correct with my colleagues.
Okay. That's fine.
Pen, where it was apparent that the funds would make the necessary the funds would not be spent by the end of the financial year, the committee encouraged the DTIC to make the necessary request to settle incentives owed to projects and programs that met all compliance and verification requirements and were ready for payment, but current vote balances did not have the required funds available. In addition, it should ensure that the necessary rollovers for delayed projects are implemented in line with prescripts.
Okay. So is this like reference to something closer to like the challenge we're experiencing in the film industry?
That's correct, Chair. Yeah.
Okay, so can't you make that quite succinctly clear?
We can. I think we can, yeah.
Yeah, even if you use it as an example so that I think let's do that. And the next one?
The next one, Chair, is the companies welcome the committee welcomed the non-financial support mechanisms that DTIC was providing to companies, including market access, capability building initiatives, and the telemetry monitoring for SMEs to ensure continuity of projects and operations.
I think that's straightforward.
However, it remained concerned about the lack of funding for industrial development due to budgetary constraints, given the potential for well-targeted incentives to drive industrialization, economic growth, and job creation.
I think that point has been made in different paragraphs above.
We can just highlight it in yellow, Chair. We will assess it, Chair.
Okay.
Okay. In terms of G20 trade and investment outcomes, in principle, the committee supported the 3 proposals regarding reform for WTO agreed to during the South Africa's G20 presidency. These covered policy space to advance industrialization, relating to technology transfer, subsidies, local content requirements, and agriculture. As policy space in these aspects were critical to were critical to enable developing countries to develop their economies. Let me repeat that. As policy space in these aspects were critical to enable developing countries to develop their economies on a more equal footing.
Yeah, that sentence doesn't have a main verb, so just from a grammar point of view.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Okay, the next one.
Given the important role of foreign economic officers to promote South African export and investment opportunities, the committee welcomed that 12 appointments would be made shortly to fill posts at foreign offices in strategic foreign markets. It encouraged the DTIC to seek the necessary funding to broaden the number of offices it can fill.
Okay.
Given the growth in online gambling and the lack of a national regulatory framework in this regard, the committee urged the DTIC to prioritize engagement with provincial governments and national treasury to reach a consensual national policy position in this regard. Subsequently, the relevant legislation should be developed for submission to Parliament in this regard. We'll just fix that language also. Delays in addressing the matter may lead to a loss of tax revenue and possible exposure of punters to the proliferation of unregulated gambling activities.
Okay. Is there nothing specific maybe we might want to address in that point? Because I think gambling has been like a topical issue in our discussion and in Parliament. Firstly. Secondly, there's a process that is quietly abandoned, which has not been resolved, Mr. Chance, on the gambling bill. Do you want to maybe refer to those things either to revive or to foster whatever processes to bring to life so that this area of work can be regulated?
Yes, you're correct, Chair. I think maybe what we need to do is specify the decision needs to be made on the on whether the 2018 National Gambling Amendment Act be revived through and also whether the 2008 Amendment Act should be implemented. So or whether new legislation needs to take account of changes in the gambling environment due to the massive increase in online gambling, something to that effect.
Okay, also there is so if I may, Chair, there is the bill for both houses at the moment. We could potentially address this matter. The bill that was revived and is before both houses for consideration. If that process is complete, will maybe also facilitate.
Yeah, I did have a meeting, if I can just say, Chair, although this isn't relevant necessarily to the committee because the committee wasn't involved, but I did have a meeting with the Minister and the DG regarding my private members bill. And as you recall, we did discuss whether that should be taken through the committee or not. The committee hasn't made a decision on that, but I think that the paragraph that is there now, I think is fine. I think it does deal with the fact the relevant legislation should be developed for submission to Parliament. That's essentially what you can refer to the existing bills, but I think that paragraph is fine in my view.
Okay, let's proceed then.
The committee remained concerned about the persistent imbalances and inequitable spatial distribution of disbursement across all provinces, as this limited provincial economic development, particularly where there were high levels of poverty and unemployment. Urged the DTIC and its development finance institution to consider mechanisms to support companies with economically viable proposals to reach project readiness in underserved provinces to ensure that there is a viable pipeline of mature projects across provinces.
I'm fine.
The committee acknowledged efforts to resolve outstanding incentive payments to the film and television sector and to develop more sustainable government funding options for future financial support to the sector.
Yeah, that point must move to that one we're trying to change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair, then the committee was concerned about the disruptive impact of artificial intelligence on the domestic global business services sector. It welcomed efforts by the DTIC Business Process Enabling South Africa and the Harambee Youth Accelerator to determine the risk and importance and opportunities related to artificial intelligence and develop and implement interventions to mitigate this. It was of the view that strategic skills development would remain a critical tool to ensure labor absorption given technological advances.
I'm fine with that.
The committee was concerned by the impact of the closure of the ferrochrome smelters due to the rising cost of electricity and other logistics and infrastructure challenges, and the impact of this on the beneficiation drive. Thus, it argued that the DTIC is to continue collaborating with Eskom and NERSA, among others, to resolve these challenges and restore domestic smelting capacity.
Yes, and then there is something about the proposals about the price of electricity to the high electricity energy users. That is before the Minister of Energy. Is there no way we can just make that point and probably encourage the engagement of both ministers in that regard to ensure we can revive the smelters?
If the committee propose that, Chair, we can work on some wording, Chair, and include it. We'll note
I'm
that.
happy with that suggestion.
In addition, the committee urged the DTIC to develop and invest in beneficiation activities that will benefit localization and facilitate South Africa to become a regional and international supplier of the beneficiated goods rather than only export the raw material.
That's okay.
Fine with me too.
In terms of the metals recycling sector, the committee recognized that there was a need to review the price preference system and the export tax to ensure that a more balanced approach was used to facilitate mini-mill steel production without undermining recyclers' revenue stream. This is critical to promote fairness and support the sustainability of the sector.
Okay.
The committee welcomed the availability of financing from the African Export-Import Bank to facilitate transformation and beneficiation. However, it encouraged the DTIC to play a role to facilitate access by companies and to ensure that good governance and accountability is maintained to reduce any unforeseen risk to government.
Okay.
While the DTIC aimed to create 1 million jobs between Chair, the point 3, 2023 was submitted by the NK Party Chair. I think the red is how we put it together. If we can go through that, and maybe Mr. Gama can see whether we accurately capture what he was saying. If I can proceed, Chair. Given the DTIC's role to facilitate employment creation and government's target to create 1 million jobs between 2025 and 2030, the committee was concerned that its current job creation targets set were too low to achieve the 2030 goal. While the DTIC highlighted a few industrial projects such as the 50 million automotive stamping plant in Gqeberha, these will not yield the requisite job growth in new jobs. The committee therefore urged the DTIC to redesign a far more ambitious plan to address unemployment, particularly among the youth.
Okay.
Mr. Garment, Chair, was his input and whether he was is okay the way we capture it, Chair.
Member Gama?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The way that I'd captured it is to succinctly indicate that if you look at what has happened in 2025, where only 40,000 new permanent jobs had actually been created, that the pace needed to be accelerated if in the remaining 4 years we are going to create this 1 million jobs that are being put there. However, we're also saying that the jobs created are just relatively far too low in relation to the national jobs gap. And therefore, the 5-year plan lacks ambition when juxtaposed against the scale of unemployment, especially youth joblessness in our country. And therefore, we were just urging that the minister should probably consider redesigning this and look at a far more ambitious plan, if there is indeed a desire to address unemployment in the country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think the point is made. Perhaps, Andrew, we should just try to be that direct that, remember we have initially when we started, the department used to report these crazy numbers that do not appear in the Stats SA about jobs. And we really try to drill down to an extent of separating new jobs and. In the spirit of the target, I think, Andrew, we can reformulate to reflect that the current numbers are low and we might not achieve that number in the future. I think just find a way of reformulating that.
Yeah, I think that based on what Mr. Gama is saying and what you are saying, Chair, we'll just add the numbers maybe in the red and then we'll make sure that it's captured, Chair.
Okay.
Next one. Going down, Sekwanda? Or Margot? Can you go down? Margot?
Andre, if Mark was struggling, I can share. If she can stop sharing, then I'll share the document.
Are we resolving that?
We are resolving that now, Chair. Margot, are you... Can you move down or Sekwanda?
Marco, can you stop sharing so that I can try on my side?
You can try now, Sekwanda.
Andre, is it visible?
It's visible, yeah.
Okay. I believe we were on point 25.
Just go up and do you want to see? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Chair, the 25 is what Mr. Gama proposed, and we just the red one will be what we capture it. The committee remained concerned that the current approach to monetary and fiscal policy did not effectively support South Africa's industrial economic development. Therefore, it implored the DTIC to continue engaging National Treasury to ensure a balance between macroeconomic, fiscal, and industrial policy that supports industrial infrastructure development and industrialization and localization.
Okay. I think that's fine.
Okay, and then go down, no, Seconda. Chair, then we didn't, this is the, what the committee needs to determine. We didn't work on it. We need a neoliberal tool to defend jobs. A non-neoliberal tool to the formal commitment to W rules and DTIC trade narrative while conscious of the geopolitical tensions, and the global shift remains sadly pro-open trade and equivalent stance that does very little in a rising unilateralism and protectionist world where the WTO stars is fast waning. Chair, the committee needs to comment on that. Chair, Mr. Chance?
Yes, Mr. Chance.
Yeah, with due respect to Mr. Gama, I think that is a partisan statement, which may reflect the views of your party. I'm not sure that it reflects the views of all the parties. I'm not sure that we can agree to that paragraph, or at least not the first sentence.
Member Gama?
It sounds like the mere mention of the word neoliberal touches a nerve, Mr. Chance.
It does touch a nerve.
Yeah, no, I can see that, Mr. Chance, which is unfortunate. But if we must continue truth-telling, what this statement seeks to achieve is to say that we need a much more protectionist stance of our own economies in a world where other players are no longer playing to the WTO rules. We need to make sure that our home frontiers are protected while we continue to explore market expansion in the rest of the world. So
yes, I take your point.
So if you have another way of formulating that without raising your blood pressure, please, you can assist me.
Yeah, just as a matter of interest, it may well interest the committee. I'm not sure whether you've read the proposed amendments to the ITAC Act, but I do strongly urge members of the committee to read those amendments, because it does actually make those provisions, which actually the DA supports, in the sense that in a world where protectionism is becoming the norm, South Africa has to protect its own interests via measures such as that. So, I don't think one needs to use politically loaded terminology, Mr. Gama, to make the point. So I think that what we can suggest is
I'm glad I've made my point.
Yes, you have made your point, and I think that there's merit to it. So can I suggest that we should change the first sentence to the committee recommends that all measures to defend jobs be explored, or something like that.
Yeah, it's just less.
The committee supports, not recommends, maybe supports.
Supports.
Yeah, I think for me, I will.
Well, maybe what we need to do is to say that the committee supports the exploration of methods outside the current WTO framework, something like that. If you want it to be a bit harder hitting.
No, colleagues. What we can't do is to break away from agreements. We rather call for enforcement of full implementation of the WTO rules, not just by South Africa, but by all the parties. And secondly, then the point Mr. Kama is using, emphasize that because we note that many countries are, using protectionism, South Africa also needs to ensure that we can defend our homegrown without veering from the rules of the WTO, something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I go along with that suggestion, Chair. I think that works.
Chair, we will capture that essence of that, Chair.
Okay.
Of what you're saying, we will capture it, Chair. Chair, if we can proceed, Chair. We're looking at the recommendations, Chair. Proposed recommendations. If we go down to just to make sure that it's procedurally in order, I just want to read the top quickly, the leading sentence, Seconda. Informed by its deliberations, the committee recommends that the House requests that the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition should consider. Then we rewrote reviewing the effectiveness of existing performance management and accountability frameworks with a view of strengthening alignment between planning, implementation and reporting to address persistent underperformance of the DTIC and its entities.
I'm happy with that. Thank you, Andre.
We can proceed down, Chair, it's in order. We assessing the policy and administrative framework governing incentive schemes to determine whether reforms are required to improve efficiency, improve turnaround times, and enhance the effectiveness of the disbursement process.
Thank you, it's fine.
Evaluating systemic factors contributing to under-expenditure and efficiencies in budget execution, particularly within programs supporting industrial development, and identify policy measures to improve the timely and impactful utilization of available resources.
Okay.
We go down. Ensuring that the recruitment processes are expedited to address capacity constraints that are affecting program implementations and service delivery.
Okay.
Assessing the adequacy of governance oversight and accountability frameworks applicable to entities reporting to the DTIC with a view to strengthen institutional performance and stability.
Okay.
Evaluating policy and coordination mechanisms across government to address constraints affecting industrial infrastructure development, including industrial parks and special economic zones.
Okay.
Then go down. Assessing whether current industrial policy interventions sufficiently contribute to sustainable employment and skills development outcomes, particularly for youth, and whether adjustments are required to improve their impact.
Yes.
Reviewing the implementation of trade policy, including trade agreements and market access initiatives, to determine whether existing approaches support export growth and global competitiveness.
I'm happy with that.
Shall I continue, Chair? Chair, shall I continue, Chair?
Yes.
Go down. Considering the development of clear measurable indicators to track progress in industrialization to strengthen monitoring and evaluation for evidence-based policy making.
Yes. No, that's fine.
Good. Is it anything further? Margot?
Andre, that was the last one on this document. I'm not sure if Mark was able to rejoin.
To add the other one, Margot?
Okay, yes.
And I don't have rights in
Okay, I will just give you rights. Just give me a sec, Chair. You have rights, Margot?
I've reorganized it slightly, so then I think it will repeat.
No, but I just want you to highlight the three points, the other issues that Mr. Garmer submitted, so that we can look at that. There we go. Chair, then the additional ones to that. Assessing the role of the state in driving industrial development, including the extent to which a more active state-led approach may be required to accelerate industrialization, support strategic sectors, and enhance economic transformation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Reviewing the effectiveness of current industrial policy instruments, including tax incentives, to determine whether the broader mix of policy tools and direct interventions is required to strengthen industrial development outcomes.
Okay.
And Margot? Engaging with relevant departments to evaluate the long-term sustainability and potential institutionalization of employment support programs, including the expansion of large-scale public employment initiatives as part of a coordinated approach to address unemployment and create long-term jobs.
Okay.
Those are the submissions made, Chair. That was the last one that was made by Mr. Garmer very early this morning.
No problem.
So the committee.
So do we go to recommendations?
And what's that
No, this
number
is the
one? 111? Sorry, Chair, number 11. What's that sitting there? That's another of ours that looks like.
No, we've read all of yours. It was Margaret just reworked it in order.
I see. Okay, understood. Thank you.
So everything was read already. So Chair is for the committee is added to move for adoption of the report with subject to the changes that the committee agreed to, Chair.
Can I get the mover and seconder for the report with as amended?
I move, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Gigaba moves. Colleagues, you've been contributing, your views are accepted, and then you are not supporting the report.
Chair, I have contributed, but I think other members take exception to the way that I tell my truth. I have contributed, but I still reserve my right because I can't not tell what I want to tell just because some of the words offend other members. Thank you, Chair.
If I can just say, Mr. Garmer, that the DA wouldn't ordinarily support a report that recommends state-led interventions, but as by way of compromise, we're happy that we give and take on this matter. So I'll be happy to second the adoption of the report, Chair.
Thank you very much. We've tried, Member Gama, to try because we have to nudge each other.
Yeah, we're trying to cross the River Jordan, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So the report is unanimously agreed to.
Chair, thanks, Chair. We'll make the necessary changes before we submit for ATC. We'll forward it to you, Chair. Chair, then we have the report on the NAFCOC petition.
Okay. If you can take us through.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as you all members would know, that we received the petition as instructed by the Speaker to consider the petition submitted by NAFCOC, and the committee had a meeting. As the introduction reflects the referral by the Speaker that required us to submit a report, because the referral was we must consider and submit a report for the House consideration. Now, if you go down, that is just the context, Chair. So the committee met on the 24th, Chair, to receive submissions from NAFCOC regarding its position of presentation. Point 2, NAFCOC presentation. It just reflects the presentation made by NAFCOC and the issues that they've raised, Chair, in the presentation, especially in relation to the IDC mandate. It's all captured in the report. Members have had the report for a while, Chair. Then we also, the committee also forwarded the IDC was on the platform to respond to some of the issues raised by NAFCOC. And the IDC responded in the context that they have not formally received those the presentation prior to the meeting, but they responded in the meeting based on what they've heard during the presentation. So that's also captured in the report, Chair. We also forwarded to members the response document to members, so members do have that. So the IDC just responded to the issues raised by NAFCOC, given the limited time they had and listening to the input that they received. So it was on the spot presentation. Then we're going to go through the deliberations and the issues raised by members during the meeting, Chair. It's captured in that. So we know, Chair, members have read. I assume we'll go to the concluding remarks, Chair. That would be the focus for this issue. Margot?
Can you, before you go there, can you go to the ITC? I know that all of us will receive it just before the start of the meeting.
Okay.
Just
no
don't read the rest. Just go to the cases. Just read to us so that we can then consider or reconsider our recommendations.
Okay, Chair. Margot?
Must I share the IDC's response?
Come again?
Must I share the letter that the IDC has sent to us?
Share you
Yes.
Yeah, we could.
Yes, just go to the cases, 5 cases that were mentioned, and what is the actual response so that we are much more clarified.
Chair, I'll go through the responses that in the letter that was raised as part of NAFCO's presentation. The Brewster Craft Beer Limited. In the response, the IDC indicated that it exercises contractual security rights to dispose of the assets of Brewster's Craft Beer Limited following sustained financial distress and after multiple interventions aimed at supporting the business and preserving operations. Initial support was given on the 16th of March. The IDC approved funding of 7.5 million, comprising plant and equipment finance at that bridging facility, and a business support facility structured as 50% grant and 50% loan. The plant was initially scheduled to commence operations in October 28. However, delays were experienced, including condition precedent to disbursement. During this period, the IDC actively monitored the account. In May 2019, certain contractual breaches were identified and were formally condoned in order to enable the project to reach commissioning and commence operations. The funding was approved to support Black women-owned youth-led enterprise with anticipated creation of additional jobs within 24 months of signing the funding agreements. The plant was ultimately commissioned in July 2019 to support initial operations. The IDC restructured the facilities and approved additional working capital funding of 1.8 million, increasing the total IDC exposure to 9.3 million. To mention, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the IDC implemented the relief measures to distress clients, including loan payments, moratoria, subject to bilateral agreement and submissions of supporting financial information. Brewster Craft was invited to participate and instructed to provide financial statements and forecasts to enable assessment of restructuring options. The required documentation was not submitted, and given the company's deteriorating financial position and the presence of long-standing creditors, the account was transferred to the Business Advisory and Turnaround Department for deeper intervention. The IDC notes that the testimony that the IDC notes the testimony that deductions notes notes the testimony that deductions continued during periods when the business was unable to trade due to COVID-19 restriction, and this aggravated distress. Without prejudicing the IDC's contractual position, the IDC acknowledges the committee's concerns about proportionality and developmental responsiveness under systemic force majeure conditions. The IDC will provide the committee with a factual chronology of the relief engagement in this matter, including what relief options were offered, what documentation was requested, and what was received, and the rationale for the timing of any repayments expectation. The IDC will also review whether information requirements and timelines applied during the COVID-19 period were appropriately calibrated to the realities facing small enterprises in shutdown-affected sectors. A comprehensive business review was undertaken to assess viability and potential turnaround strategies. Following the loss of certain anchor customers, the IDC allowed the company time to secure alternative markets and demonstrate the ability to generate sustainable revenue before considering a formal restructuring. The company was unable to achieve financial sustainability revenue levels. Management initiated a structured wind down. The matter was escalated to legal recoveries, where settlement proposals from management were evaluated alongside third-party offers. Asset valuations were conducted by the IDC Technical Service Department using both the cost approach and direct comparable market approach, adjusted for physical, functional, and economic excellence to determine open market and for sale values. The sale process was conducted transparently in accordance with the IDC asset disposal policies and the Companies Act, including public advertising and an online auction. Although recoveries were below outstanding exposure, the IDC accepted proceeds as full and final settlement and did not pursue the shareholder for any residual shortfall. With regard to Engineering Services, it represents a greenfield industrial project aimed at establishing a local LPG gas cylinder manufacturing facility in the Kruger Industrial Development Zone. While production equipment has been procured and is located on the site, the facility has not been commissioned and requires significant additional investment. The company was placed under business rescue to explore long-term. Go down, Margot. Solutions, including potential investor participation. In November 2015, the IDC approved a funding package of 191 million to support the establishment of the manufacturing facility and location of LPG cylinder production. As a greenfield project, the IDC structured funding to allow sufficient time for commissioning and ramp up. Due to the pioneering nature of the project and the absence of early co-founders, the IDC exposure exceeded normal funding norms. The IDC was initially structured as an equity participant, but subsequently relinquished this position when the promoter qualified for Black Industrialist Grant funding, facilitating a 50 million Black Industrial Grant in favor of the promoter. When the funding shortfall of 120 million was reported, the IDC commissioned a detailed due diligence review. This assessment concluded that the total additional funding required was approximately 238 million, and the project volumes were insufficient to service such exposure. The promoter was afforded an opportunity to secure a strategic equity partner, with the IDC facilitating introductions. Although a funding commitment was reportedly obtained from Rosebank Capital, this did not materialize. Further efforts were curtailed following internal audit findings of financial misconduct. The IDC notes the testimony that the promoter induced alternative funding partners and that the IDC allegedly declined to engage meaningfully with the proposed solution. The IDC will provide the committee with a factual record of engagement with any proposed investor co-finance in this matter, including meeting requests, engagements held, due diligence steps undertaken in any, and the basis for any decision not to proceed, subject to lawful constraints. The IDC accepts that where investor engagement forms part of a credible preservation plan, responsiveness and timely decisioning are critical and will strengthen internal escalation standards accordingly. Apart from the DTICB grant, of which 25% were incorrectly paid to a consultant, no additional co-funders were secured. The IDC had intended to reduce exposure once the project was commissioned and de-risked. The production asset remained unassembled and securely stored at Kuga. Should liquidation be finalized, asset realization will proceed in accordance with the applicable insolvency process. With regard to the Pakamisa Foods Pty Limited, in November 2018, the IDC approved funding of 38.26 million, complemented by 18.2 million DTIC BIS grant, bringing total cost to 57 million. The facility was commissioned in November 2019, with sales commencing in December 2019. Despite commissioning, production volumes remained below capacity due to significant working capital shortfall. The IDC approved an additional 10 million, 6 million sub-order loan and 4 million grant to support Famous Brands orders and address overdue creditors. Restructuring included capitalization of arrears, conversion of a 6.3 million refundable VAT facility into working capital, deferment of payment obligations, and condonation of certain breaches related to unapproved use of funds. These interventions enabled delivery against anchor contracts. However, the business remained exposed to customer concentration risk. The IDC cautioned the client accordingly and adopted a medium to long-term view, recognizing access to market constraints for startups. Following the exit of an anchor customer and sustained inability to service debt, the client was granted approximately 2.5 years to secure a strategic equity partner, given that the balance sheet could not absorb further debt. The IDC noted this testimony that restructuring was requested following the loss of an anchor client and that other customers reportedly willing to increase offtake. The IDC will provide the committee with a factual chronology of the restructuring process received, the specific facilities terms requested for restructuring, the IDC assessment of viability and risk, and the basis for decision path taken, subject to lawful constraints. The IDC accepts the market demand signals must be incorporated explicitly in turnaround assessments and will strengthen how these are evidenced and recorded in decisioning. The IDC has not enforced recovery and continues to fund rental costs while long-term solutions are pursued. Support from Makamisa aligned with transformation priorities in agro-processing, localization, job creation, women-owned enterprises, including blended financing and asset preservation. Carbon Africa board resolved to commence voluntary business risk proceedings in November 23. The IDC approved and disbursed 66 million to restart the strategic textile manufacturing operation in KwaZulu-Natal, aligned with the CTFL master plan. Funding was approved in March 22, while working capital disbursed in February 23, following acquisition of assets from a liquidator and fulfillment of condition precedent. All suppliers guaranteed was issued in March 24. The DTS notes the testimony that working capital was released after delay and that funds allegedly flowed directly to landlords without shareholder awareness. The IDC will provide the committee with a disbursement schedule and payment flow record, as well as confirmation of governance requirements applicable to such flows, subject to lawful constraints. The IDC accepts that transparency of disbursement flows is essential to maintaining stakeholder trust. Following the initial financial distress, assessments concluded that additional debt was not viable. Shareholders were advised to seek 50 to 60 million in equity, which they were unable to provide, promoting voluntary business rescue. The business rescue practitioner determined that the structural wind down was the only viable option. The rescue plan was approved by more than 75% of independent creditors, including the IDC. A competitive process was followed after withdrawal of a foreign bidder. The IDC supported a local in situ sale to the landlord for 60 million, coupled with waiver of 22 million in storage claims. The IDC notes the testimony that the enterprise value and replacement costs were allegedly significantly higher than the realized resale consideration. They will provide the committee with the evaluation approach applied in the business rescue sale context, including the basis for determining fair values of assets sold, the bids received, and compliance requirements applied, subject to lawful constraints. The IDC acknowledges the disposal involving strategic industrial capacity must be demonstrably fair, competitive, and consistent with legal duties and developmental objectives. The IDC acted in accordance with the Companies Act and fiduciary obligations. Assets were sold in situ to preserve industrial capacity and potential employment. The BT Industrial Group was incorporated in 2017, manufacturers polypropylene pipes, medical devices, and polymer-based components serving mining, agriculture, and infrastructure sector. In 2022, the IDC funded expansion, including relocation, new machinery, solar energy installation, and working capital. The project aimed to create 142 additional jobs, increasing employment from 83. Following distress, the account was transferred to the turnaround department. When the recovered options were exhausted, it was escalated to legal recoveries. It's currently involved in litigation with guarantors. Accordingly, it's unable to comment on specific enforcement matters that are sub judice. It notes that the committee's concern regarding the legal consent could not become a substitute for accountability, while the IDC cannot comment on contested enforcement matters before the court. The IDC commits to provide the committee with appropriate factual chronology of the investment approval, funding structure, disbursement sequences, and internal turnaround escalation steps to the extent lawfully permissible and without prejudice litigation. This is intended to support oversight of institutional process, governance, and development aligned, separate from adjudication of legal disputes. Conclusion: it remains committed to its mandate of promoting inclusive industrial development and advancing Africa's transformation agenda. They acknowledge that while actions may be complied with governance frameworks, outcomes in several cases fell short of developmental intent. It welcomed parliamentary oversight and committed to constructive engagement with NAFCOC, the committee, and effective stakeholders to strengthen institutional responsiveness, rebuild trust, and ensure that patient capital is translated into timely, practical, and developmentally meaningful support. That is the end of that, Chair.
Okay, we can then go straight then to the recommendations.
Concluding remark.
Yeah, concluding remarks.
Chair. Okay, as indicated there, the committee noted the concerns raised by NAFCOC regarding a perceived misalignment between the IDC developmental mandate set out in legislation and its operation application, particularly in relation to transformation, industrialization, and inclusive growth. We incorporated the blue part as part of that, Mr. Chance, because it captures already your issues.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Chair, if I may proceed, Chair. In addition, it noted the concerns raised in relation to alleged broader systemic issues affecting Black-owned enterprises within the development finance landscape. In particular, NAFCOC alluded to inconsistencies and bias against Black-owned businesses in the IDC's finding, verification, and decision-making process, which negatively affected its support to Black-owned business. This might reflect broader structural constraints facing Black enterprises. While NAFCOC used 5 individual case studies to demonstrate its argument, its submission team has deemed these case studies as pointing to potential systemic challenges in the IDC's funding, restructuring, and recovery processes. These concerns, particularly regarding perceived mistreatment of Black-owned enterprises, raise important questions about whether operational practices of the IDC remain fully aligned with its developmental mandate, especially in advancing transformation, industrialization, and inclusive economic participation. Notwithstanding the principle of separation of powers, the committee recognized its constitutional responsibility to exercise oversight over entities reporting to it and to ascertain whether they were effectively implementing their mandates and contributing to national priorities such as job creation, support for Black industrialists, and broad-based economic transformation. The committee acknowledged that concerns regarding the alleged prioritization of premature legal enforcement, liquidation processes, and asset disposals over development support indicate that the IDC may prioritize balance sheet protection at the expense of industrial capacity preservation and job retention, which warrant careful and objective scrutiny by the executive authority. We combine those two, Mr. Chance?
Yeah. Happy with that, thank you.
The committee was concerned by the breakdown in communication and stakeholder relations between the IDC and affected businesses, which has resulted in parliamentary intervention. This reflects weaknesses in internal dispute resolution and escalation mechanisms. I'll continue.
Yeah, I think I'm happy that that stays.
It emphasized the value of structured and sustained engagement between the IDC and the relevant stakeholders, including organized business formations such as NACO, to maintain and improve communications, address funding and other concerns, and foster mutual trust. In particular, there's a need for greater transparency, consistency, and fairness in the application of funding and recovery mechanisms. The committee acknowledged the IDC's response that it remains committed to transformation and that it operates within a regulated governance environment. However, the committee was concerned that compliance with governance frameworks alone was insufficient where outcomes and stakeholder experience suggest that the developmental intent was not consistently realized. In this regard, the committee welcomed the IDC's acknowledgement that intent is not the test and that lived experiences and outcomes must be regarded as an important indicators of performance, especially for institutions entrusted with advancing inclusive development. The committee noted with concern the possibility that institutional culture, risk assessment practices, and procedure requirements may unintentionally disadvantage Black-owned enterprises, particularly in capital-intensive and export-oriented sectors, thereby undermining national transformation objectives. While the committee recognized the complexity of the IDC's roles as a development finance institution, it was of the view that IDC should not focus on financial sustainability, but should place emphasis on national development objectives, as the former appear to be currently outweighing developmental consideration. In terms of the IDC recovery mechanism, the committee welcomes efforts to strengthen its criteria-based performance, pause protocol for distressed but potentially viable businesses, and align this to an enhanced restructuring before foreclosure framework. However, the committee encouraged the IDC to publish the criteria informing decisions related to legal enforcement, liquidations, or asset disposal, as well as the extent to which turnaround strategies and the preservation of industrial capacity and employment were considered. The committee emphasized the significance of enhancing transformation outcomes in the IDC's operations and encouraged the consideration of measurable interventions throughout the application, funding and post-investment phases to address any support gaps for Black-owned businesses, particularly in capital-intensive and industrial sectors. Furthermore, the committee was of the view that reliable and disaggregated data was essential for effective oversight. Therefore, requested the provision of empirical information on funding approvals, restructuring outcomes, business risk interventions, and liquidation trends. The committee also expressed the need for the DTIC to facilitate a broader policy dialogue or colloquium involving relevant stakeholders to examine systemic challenges affecting development finance, transformation and support for SMEs, to inform policy and legislative development processes. In addition, the committee emphasized the importance of accessible, fair and transparent complaints and escalation mechanism, and encouraged the strengthening of such processes to ensure that affected parties were afforded timely and appropriate recourse. In this regard, it welcomed the IDC proposal to establish an independent complaints and mediation mechanism to address disputes relating to process, fairness, service experience, turnaround responsiveness, and escalation handling. The committee affirmed that development funding institutions must not operate as commercial banks, and their role is to apply patient capital, provide appropriate turnaround support, and enable industrial development while still protecting public resources and ensuring sustainability. Furthermore, the committee concluded that matters raised warrant strengthened oversight, improved transparency, and urgent reforms within the IDC to ensure that transformation and industrialization objectives are meaningfully achieved. Therefore, the committee requested that the IDC consider implementing improved developmental mechanisms to support Black industrialists more effectively. This could include lower interest rates, lower turnaround times for enterprise to become profitable, and post-investment development support through technical assistance and market access support, among others. The committee re-emphasized the need for the IDC to consider corrective and remedial measures to restore institutional credibility, effectiveness, and rebuild trust, which are essential to restore investor confidence, advance inclusive economic participation, and support sustainable job creation. This should include the development of a clear transformation action plan with measurable targets to address systemic concern. The committee noted that the IDC's failure to receive NACAF's case studies in advance limited its ability to respond comprehensively during the engagement. And nevertheless, the committees of the view the Parliament must be provided with a full and factual account of each case to ensure transparency and fairness. Chair, we go to the recommendations, Chair. Just go to informed by its deliberation. The committee recommends that the House requests that the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition should consider reviewing in consultation with the IDC the extent to which its current operational, we combine the input from both from the parties that submitted, Chair, into one. The extent to which its current operational model, risk assessment, and due diligence frameworks are aligned with its development mandate, particularly in relation to economic transformation, equitable access to finance, and support for new high-growth sectors. Reviewing whether existing policies and frameworks governing business rescue, restructuring, and enforcement action adequately balance financial sustainability with turnaround strategies, job retention, and the preservation of industrial capacity. Assessing the adequacy of governance frameworks, stakeholder engagement processes, and complaints and dispute resolution mechanisms within the IDC, including whether enhancements are required to strengthen transparency, accountability, and trust between the institution and its clients. Reviewing the adequacy of legislative and policy frameworks governing the IDC, including the Industrial Development Corporation Act of 1940, to determine whether it sufficiently enables the institution to fulfill its developmental mandate, strengthen industrial capacity, and advance economic transformation. Considering mechanisms to strengthen transparency and oversight of the IDC portfolio performance, including approvals, disbursements, restructuring outcomes, and exits, in order to identify systemic trends and assess alignment with developmental and transformation objectives, and provide periodic updates to Parliament on measures undertaken to ensure that IDC strategic direction, governance frameworks, and operations remain aligned with its mandate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from members?
Yes, I do have a comment, Chair.
Yes, competence.
I think that that report by the IDC was quite informative, actually, and it seems to me that there was a common thread in those 5 case studies, which was that there was a questionable business case for why that investment should have taken place in the first place. And I think that what I'd like to suggest is that in the recommendations, we recommend that the IDC it pays more attention to pre-investment mentorship and support, and post-investment mentorship and support in order to try and reduce the incidence of business rescue. I mean, you know, what I'm really getting at is that in many cases you might find these businesses are started by people without necessarily a lot of business experience, or even if they have, they maybe would benefit from having support from people who had been in business, you know, mentors who had been in business and have experience in starting and running a business. So that's really the recommendation that I'm recommending here.
Pre and post
investment, mentorship, and support, as has been written up on the screen now.
Okay. No, that's fine. And then now I'm trying to maybe the 7th recommendation we should be very specific that the IDC should meet and give feedback to those individual companies within a specific period time frame, so that we remain firm in terms of the oversight role and we don't overreach and direct them to do certain things, because they are putting specific, which is why I wanted us to read the letter. So maybe we should recommend that the ITC meets and take each company, each firm into confidence about the issues and to look at whether or not some agreements can be reached. I think so that there is a specific recommendation as it relates to the submission as received from NAFCOC. I don't know what members are thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chair. And I think something else that comes to mind is that to be proactive, maybe we should recommend that the IDC conducts a review of all of its portfolio. In other words, all the businesses that it's supporting, and just do a sort of current assessment of those businesses and whether they are potentially going to head into a business rescue situation, and proactive support to identify problems before they occur.
Okay.
Chair, maybe just to add, it's unfortunate that the IDC letter came during injury time, because I think the letter, the parts that we did not read, for instance, the IDC supports independent verification of portfolio trends and will cooperate fully with Parliament to enable objective assessment of whether comparable cases received comparable treatment and whether any structural or procedural factors may have produced unequal outcomes, just as an example. So I think for me, our holistic response, other than just engaging with the 5 in terms of the case studies, there needs to be that general verification, because, for instance, I think you would be aware there was another case of Njabulo Dlamini that came through as a result, perhaps, from the initial NAFCOC discussion. So maybe in discussing this, the TTIC and the minister should therefore undertake also some of those issues. But I think specifically, it would seem that the behavior has been seen to be more of behaving more like commercial banks rather than development institutions. And if there's a structural, strategic sort of context to this that the TIC needs to have a look at, because if you are looking at an IDC Act of 1940, what is it that has been given as a tool of trade to the IDC to say a post-1994 IDC needs to behave in a particular fashion? And what are the tools that the TIC is using in order to guide and direct the IDC so that it does what we believe the objectives of a developmental state are? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the point is well made. Are there further deliberations, colleagues, with regard to the recommendations? Can I then get a mover and seconder?
Before, Chair, if I may, just
Yes.
for the period, shall we say 6 months after the adoption of this report by the House, Chair?
6 months is too long, maybe 3 months.
Okay, 3 months, Chair, after the adoption
Yes.
of the report by the House, yes.
Yes.
Shouldn't you say adoption by the committee? Because we don't know when it's going to be tabled in the House.
The report must be considered, it must be tabled to the House. It's the instruction we receive from the Speaker, Chair. So it must be considered by the House.
Yeah, but we don't know when it's going to be considered. It
Yes.
could be another 3 months, which means that it's 6 months from now.
It's committee's report. If they want to say adoption from the time we adopted it,
I think from the time we adopted. I think from the time we adopted, Chair, because otherwise it could be any time.
Yeah, it can take long. Okay, so are we agreeing that 3 months from the time we adopted the report, and acknowledge that it will still be 80C, the report?
Yes, it will be after we've made the necessary adjustments in terms of language, Chair, for 6, 7, and 8. We'll submit it to you for approval, and then we will submit for you to be 80C, Chair.
Okay. As CEO, as CFO, as a person who's here, we would also like you to convey this message, or we need to officially write a letter to the IDC just in terms of those engagements. I think it can help so that we after the meeting, Andrew.
We could do so, Chair.
Okay, perfect.
Noted.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Chair, we need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the report, Chair.
Okay. Can we get a mover and seconder?
I'll move, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Chance move. Seconders?
I second, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Musikasi. Second. Thank you very much. The report is adopted.
Chair, with all of that fanfare, my input is that the MKP stance remains fully reserved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item is the program and for the next quarter, Chair, for adoption. If we can take the committee to do that.
Yes, please.
Chair, I think before we even start with the Tuesday 21st, maybe provide context or update on the study tour application, Chair. Chair, last week we received the request from the Office of the House Chairperson that we should consider alternative dates for the study tour because on the Tuesday, the 27th of April, there's a special sitting on to consider the special appropriation bill, and that would require everyone's attendance on Tuesday, the 21st of April. Hence, our program would start on Tuesday, 21st of April to consider the annual performance and strategic plans of the department. Also, in relation to the study tour, Chair, subsequent on the same day, we received the request also from Japan, the Embassy of Japan, the Ambassador of Japan, whether the committee also should not reconsider, because they normally would require 4 to 6 weeks to facilitate such engagements. Although we had our discussions in the past, but to formally process it, they would require 4 to 6 weeks. So the request from the House Chairperson Office as well as the Embassy aligned in that regard. Chair, then we on the 21st of April, seeing that everybody will be in Cape Town on that day, Chair, we will have the briefing by the TTIC on the 26-27 annual performance and strategic plans, Chair. Then the following week, Chair, on Tuesday, the 28th of April, we'll get the briefing by the IDC on their annual performance and strategic plans, including its new vision that they will address the committee on. That will be followed by a status report from SAPS on the allegation of corruption and maladministration at the NLC. Remember, last time we had engagement with the NPA and SIU, and SAPS was the missing link. So we will then schedule that for that. Those 3 meetings on the 21st, 28th, and 29th will be in person. And so then we should just know that. Then on Tuesday the 5th and Wednesday the 6th and 8th, that week will be virtual meetings. We'll get update on trade relations and negotiation by the TTIC. We will consider on Wednesday the 6th, we will consider the first draft of our report on the TTIC's 26-27 annual performance and strategic plans. And on Friday, we will formally consider the report. Normally after Wednesday, members take it to the particular caucuses, and then we will conclude that report on Friday. On that week will be on a virtual platform. Then, Chair, mini plenaries has been scheduled for the week of the 12th to 22nd, and given that all members are required sometimes to attend, we have not scheduled anything. So our next meeting will be on the 26th of May. We will get feedback from the sugar industry on the value chain master plan. I don't know, Mr. Mdluli raised his hand. I don't know if there's anything that we said prior, or must we continue, Chair?
Yes, Madam Blue.
Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity. I just see that we're going to be having a steel engagement, Andre, and I just wanted to inquire because I had written a letter to ask for a meeting with the steel industry, the minister, the DG, and some other players in the steel industry to just address some challenges that are faced there. So I want to ask if that has been considered. I see that we have the steel and metal fabrication master plan feedback session, but I just want to inquire about that. Thanks.
Mr. Mdluli, remember we had a follow-up meeting with the steel industry. This is a follow-up to that, and with that matter that you may have raised can form part of such an engagement as well on the 27th of May. But we will have a conversation with the chair regarding that matter, and we'll come back to you on that matter, but should form part of that discussion. Then, Chair, on the 29th, we will have a follow-up engagement that we had with the Department of Communications, and we'll conclude that business with the CASA regarding the amended regulations affecting data expiration. And that will be on a virtual platform, Chair. Then, on the 2nd of June, we'll do the annual performance of ITAC and ECIC of the 26-27 annual performance strategic plans. Then we'll get a briefing by the NEF and MISA on the 26-27 annual performance and strategic plans. Then this meeting that was postponed, we will continue with engagement with the minister regarding the unblocking of obstacles to the development of Atlantis SEZ and Freeport Saldanha, as well as other SEZs regarding tax incentives and that matters there, Chair. Then on Wednesday the 10th, we will be engaging SANAS and NRCS on the 26-27 annual performance and strategic plans. Then, Chair, the proposed study tour date, the new is from the 15th to the 19th of June. Given the current program, it's an oversight week for that week. And we've also indicated to the embassy in Japan that those are possible dates that we can consider. So we're just waiting.
Can I just ask a question? Why does it only start on the 15th if you depart on the 12th?
Mr. Chance, at 15 is the Monday, and we're leaving on the Friday. So we'll probably traveling 24 hours. We will probably arrive on Sunday morning in Japan.
I see. So it's a
Hence-
5-day study tour, effectively.
Yeah, it's a full week, yeah.
Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Chair, and then that's what we propose. Mr. Mtluli raises his hand again.
Yes, Andre, I just want to inquire if there's still, if we're still going to follow the same formula that we discussed.
Yes.
But either way, I'm not going to be present. I'll be abroad as well on those days. So just for the noting of the committee. Thanks.
Mr. Chance also raised his hand, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Thank you, Andre. Thanks, Chair. Just one other thing to flag is the proposed presentation of the TSU report of the SABS by Minister Tao. I know that he hasn't confirmed a date yet, but I'd just like to request that when the time comes, we find a time to do that.
It's in the program, Mr. Chance, on 23rd.
Oh, sorry, I saw that. Okay, sorry. On the 23rd of June. That's
Yes.
still like 3 months away. Is that is it not possible to do it before that?
We possibly can, but we'll probably have to engage the DTS through you, Chair, with the DTIC, whether they would be available, whether if they will be ready to present. We thought by that time they should be ready.
Well, I just let me tell you, I was at the investment conference yesterday and spoke to Deirdre Penfold, who's one of the board members of the SABS, and she, without sort of disclosing any confidential information, she said that they were busy implementing the recommendations, and I think it's important that the committee understands what is happening with that report, because it sounds to me as though there are some quite significant changes going on there, and she agreed with me that it's absolutely vital that transparency is a principle that must be adopted by the SABS in implementing the report. So, Chair, I urge that be something that we consider much sooner than the 23rd of June.
Okay, so let's find the date. One of the days, Andre.
Yeah, we will have it. Yeah, we can find that. We'll move it up further, Chair. That shouldn't be a problem, Chair. And then, Chair, we on the 24th we conclude for next term the briefing by the NGB and NLC on the annual performance and strategic plans. And the constituency period starts on the 26th, 29th, and 3rd to the 3rd of August, Chair.
Okay. Are there any additions or issues that are urgent that must be included in the program? Because once approved, at least we will have certainty in terms of our work. Can I get the mover and seconder for the program as amended?
Chairperson, I move for the adoption of this program.
Thank you very much, Member Sophia. And then seconders?
I second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kigaba, second. We now have a program, noting that the first 3 meetings will be physical. I think that, Andre, as you write to the board, would like the board of IDC to appear before the portfolio committee in person, probably without apology, so that they can share with us their new vision in line with what we have envisaged as a role of the IDC. I think it's very important that we emphasize that. Is there any other item?
No, Chair, we concluded the business. We gave the members an update on, Chair, maybe in terms of the delegation, Chair, we maybe speak to that, given your conversation that you had with the chair, House Chairperson.
Yes.
Shall I, or you do?
Yeah, you can proceed.
As its practice is normally when a committee submit applications to the House Chairperson and the Speaker for consideration, he normally requests to meet with the Chairperson. And in that discussion, he indicated that the budget wouldn't allow for the committee to take its full committee to travel, and that the committee most likely will have 2 trips planned in this parliamentary term. So the proposal was that the committee reduce its members to accommodate that. So the first group The first group that will travel will be 6 members, and the second group will be another 6 members. The chair will be the constant in those 2 groupings. So in terms of the formula, we would have, for the first group, we will have the 3 ANC, 1 DA, 1 EFF, and 1 NK member. And the next group will be the rest who didn't travel for, this time around. So that is the approach that we undertook. So that's what we will resubmit now to the House Chairperson, following confirmation of whether the time that we allocated to Japan is okay with that. Alternatively, it will happen during the recess of June, July. So, Chair, further than that, there's no other matters on the table from our side, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, you will recall that in our last visit to the Eastern Cape SCZ, we further picked up that there is a trend, having gone to KZN, Gauteng, and the Eastern Cape, that amongst all these SCZ, we are having challenges. Some are similar, and so on and so on. We toyed with an idea of establishing a working group on the SCZ, the auto sector, which will basically give us a report on urgent reforms to unblock the challenges that are faced by the SCZ and the auto sector, so that we are able as a committee to have our report and write recommendations to the executive so that we can assist. Otherwise, our visits are just those visits, and all of us, it will be impossible for this working group to have all of us. So what I wanted to suggest is that I recommend that we nominate Member Mkutu to chair, Member Gama, Member Chance, and Member Webster to be the 4 persons working group committee that is going to help us to deal with specifically with the SCZ and auto sector challenges and the things that we must recommend firmly based on the report. And obviously they will be supported by the staff, and then Andre will decide who will work with the committee just to make sure that they're able to do their work with regard to the SCZ programs. Can I just get a quick comment so that we can conclude the meeting, colleagues, on the proposal?
Chair, may I just before members comment, just on the proposal, that just to guide the process, is that the rules allow for establishment of a subcommittee, which must report constantly to the committee. So the rules allow for what the chairperson had proposed, that they establish a subcommittee, and the subcommittee will then through you, Chair, we will then develop a framework which will be adopted by the committee at its next meeting that will guide the work of the subcommittee. So I thought I'll tell you that so that we can at the next meeting formalize it in detail with the framework that will guide the work of the subcommittee, which then reports to the full committee. It doesn't take over the function or the role of the full committee, Chair. Thanks.
Okay, can we just get quick comments from members, and then we'll follow that process, Andre?
Chairperson,
Yes.
that said by Ambri, Chair, in terms of the recommendation that you make for the members of the committee and the chairperson, I fully agree, and I also recommend that we approve the committee as nominated.
Thank you very much. Any other hands?
Mr. Mdluli, Chair?
Member Mdluli?
Chair. Yes, Chair. I just have one question. I hear that the name of the Honorable Mkutu was suggested for Chair. I want to ask Utsini and Mkutu about this. The second question, Chair, is just about the other question, Chair, is just about on us, because I know that my name wasn't mentioned to be part of the subcommittee, so it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be involved in the subcommittee. Thanks.
Chair?
Thank you very much. Yes.
May I say, if there's a core committee established, but nothing prevents members of participating when they can add value to the discussion, Chair. So
Yes.
it's an open policy.
Okay. Any other hand?
No other hands, Chair.
Okay. Are we together, members? Colleagues?
Mr. Chance has thumbs up, Mr.
Yes, Mr.
Chair.
Chance.
No, I was just giving the thumbs up, but just a final request that the committee's program be circulated ASAP.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. And then the meeting is officially adjourned. We shall meet on the 21st. Is it 21st, right? Of
Correct,
April.
yes. 21st of April, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much, colleagues. The meeting is officially adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Thank
you.
Long live the chair.
Thank you.